Welcome to Unlocking Moves, where we want to cover those key pivotal moments and decision points that really change the lives of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. And I want to hear their stories because I think we learn the most from stories. But I don't want to hear just their glory stories. I want to hear their gory stories because, as I like to say, the bigger the shit show, the bigger the lesson. We are 42 episodes into Unlocking Moves, and what a wild ride it's been. We've had some amazing guests, and we've had a great time. We've had a couple of themes that have come out along the way. And one of the ones I want to touch on today, in light of the fact that it's coming up on holiday season here in 2024. And that is, we've had some major guests in the consumer packaged goods or consumer goods category. So let's talk a little bit about some of the stories that have come up for them. First and foremost, I want to start off with one of my favorite episodes, the folks from Poppy, Stephen and Allison Ellsworth. They shared with us several key stories that I think you're all going to love. The first one is about this concept of good fortune. How do you make your own luck? And I would argue that it takes hard work and preparation is the key elements to making your own luck. We're going to hear what I call the farmer's market story, which is how they kind of got their first big break. Let's hear it.
So tell me the farmer's market story, because I heard that a little while ago, and I thought it was a fascinating story.
Our third weekend, right, at the farmer's market.
Weeks in, yeah.
It was a bustling day. We had lines, creating a lot of buzz, giving samples, and that was when a local forager from Whole Foods approached our booth and tried our product and pulled Allison aside and said, "I love what you guys are doing here. People are excited about it." She's like, "We have nothing like this in our store. I'd love for you guys to be in Whole Foods."
Well, she was there with her mom too, which I think was cool. She wasn't there like with Whole Foods working.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "I never do this. I'm literally on vacation with my mom. Here's my card. You guys need to be in Whole Foods." So I think at that point is where it hit us like, oh, we have a business. At the time, it was kind of like a hobby. We had amazing careers in oil and gas research previous to this. We were starting a family. I think I was 3 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, oh, we have a beverage company. And I almost feel like moments like that they're kind of like those aha moments. And that was definitely one for us.
I'm going to venture to say that was going to be one of your unlocking moves. Somebody discovered you from Whole Foods. I hope could you share her name so we
Kelly Landrew, she changed our lives. Shout out.
We honestly still connect with her. And it's been so fun. She's been just such a champion for us. And at Whole Foods meetup, she'll have us come speak in front of the Whole Foods team every once in a while. But she's just such a huge cheerleader, and it's been awesome.
Man, I love that story. First and foremost, we can say, yes, it's a fortuitous event to have the Whole Foods buyers show up at a Dallas farmer's market. But the fact that Stephen and Allison were at the farmer's market showcasing their wares is, I think, a big story in and of itself. A lot of people wait for the phone to ring, or maybe they email the buyers and try to get them to try their soda that way. But the Ellsworths were out there hustling and making it happen. And that's where good fortune shined. I love that story. I'd like to skip ahead to another farmer's market story, which is Matthias Illenfeld with Womb Bikes. And the thing I want you to hear about all these farmer's market stories, it's, yes, maybe you're not going to get rich selling at farmer's markets, but it's a great way to, as we're going to find out in this episode, see what customers like and don't like about your product.
Anyway, so I finally get to go to Mueller through a connection, and the weather was not ideal. It was 35 degrees on that Saturday, and there was one child riding the bike, and that was Luca. He was the only one showing up to actually experience and be part of the program. So, in all seriousness, events was definitely a big one. It's a heavy lift because, you have to basically do it all on your own, and you never know who turns up and who shows up. And so but it's certainly something that was important to me. Building relationships and being part of other organizations, I think, has also been very important. And then I think the biggest thing for me was to reach out to, I was asking myself, how do I create trust with the consumer? And I can say whatever I want about the product that doesn't make it trustworthy. So I needed to find some social proof, right? So that was two ways to find social proof. One is I would be leveraging my existing customer, right? So those 13 customers I already had sold bikes to in 2014, I would try to get them on board and say, can you please help me and share that success with other parents? So that was one thing. And then the second thing was independent reviewers, right? And back in the days, believe it or not, there were people, parents, most of them, that were reviewing, products for children. And so I was spending quite a bit of time, working with them and showing how, sending them the sample products, they would test it, and then they would write up that we were the best product on the market. And that's certainly, those two things were certainly the early solutions to that problem.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Matthias. Here's what I heard with what you just said. Number one is get out there yourself and interact with customers and be the feet on the street. Don't hire an intern to go sell bikes at the freaking farmer's market in the early days. Do it yourself. You want to get the feedback, and you inspire your customers to want to support you in your new business, I'm sure, and then continue to iterate and be an advocate for your consumer. Thanks for sharing. That's amazing.
So I love that clip because it talks also about a farmer's market, but this one was quite different. This is where Matthias's son is the only one that's riding bikes, and it is cold as balls, 35 degrees in Austin, Texas. But he didn't let that stop him. He wanted to interact with customers. He wanted to build trust with customers, and he wanted to see what it would take to sell his bikes and make people happy. So I encourage you to get out there, talk to your customers, see how you can make changes to make it better, and just build that strong relationship with that early customer base. Next, I want to talk about something that we don't really think about, and frankly, it's not talked about very often, but that is the name of your company. I'll say firsthand, naming a company is a lot of pressure. It's almost as much pressure as naming your children, because you're going to be stuck with those names, and they're going to be stuck with those names for many years to come. Although I guess you could rename it, but I want to talk a little bit about one of our episodes with Tori Brodsky, which was, her name of her company is called Bessa Mi Vino, which I thought meant get your damn hands off my wine, but evidently means kiss my wine. But let's hear how that story came about. Hey, let's switch gears for a minute. I want to talk about wine, and you can confirm or deny that Bessa Mi Vino means don't touch my wine. But you sent me, well, first of all, talk a little bit about your wine. Then I want to show this amazing box that you sent me.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm the CEO of Bessa Mi Vino. This is one of our wines. We have three. This is our rosé. It is an organic canned wine from Paso Robles, California. And it is delicious, I'll say that, but it actually directly translates in Spanish to kiss my wine. So the reason for that is because it was created, and we can go into the origin story of the company in a little bit, but it was created because the founders really wanted to create one of the first clean canned wines, something that was made sustainably, made with organic grapes and suitable for people who have sensitivities to things like sulfites and added sugars in wines. And so that's why they created it. And there's actually even a funnier story behind the name if you want to go into that.
Hey, if it's funny, let's go.
So the real story behind the name was actually that the two founders are two brothers from Los Angeles. And the original name was not Bessa Mi Vino, it was something else. And they had already incorporated the company. They'd started making the wine. They had gone to a trade show, and at the trade show, the founder got a phone call from a lawyer saying, we have a cease and desist for the name of your wine because someone's already using it. So you've got to change the name. And he's panicking because I think at that point in time, it was like there were a lot of orders going out, and maybe he had like a day, like 24 hours to figure out a new name. So he's at a trade show, and at the same time that he's finding this out, a mother and a daughter that were vendors at the trade show, some natural food trade show, were listening to this, and they spoke Spanish and said, we actually have an idea for your wine, because they had just been talking about this clean canned wine, and they suggested Bessa Mi Vino. And he said, that sounds great to me. I'm going to go with it. And so they went with that name after a suggestion from a mother-daughter duo who spoke Spanish and really liked that. So I thought that was a great story of like a panic of something, really bad happening. And then all of a sudden the problem was randomly solved by two strangers.
I love that story. Man, I'd love to hear all the stories about how companies got their names. I bet there are equally as interesting ones out there. We have several examples about how Tori Brodsky and the Bessa Mi Vino team were creative. One way that they took their packaging and leveraged it to make it improve and enhance their community. Let's check this one out.
Essentially, I took over this company as the new CEO last year. It's been around since 2019. And in end of 2020, I became their new CEO. Now, my intentions for the brand were to do a couple of things. Number one was to re-engage the community. And number two was to relaunch the brand. So actually, as you can see, like we have a new red wine. We didn't have that before. This actually looks a lot different than what it used to. And we haven't even launched this officially yet. It launches in June. But the box is our way to engage with our community. So what it is, it's actually a drinking game, a proprietary drinking game that I created called Spin the Bessa. And the idea is that it's a spin on spin the bottle, the old game where you're sitting around with friends at a party or whatever when you're a teenager and you spin the bottle. And
I think I played it with a girl in a banana suit one time in high school.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? And so you spin the bottle, obviously it points to someone and you kiss them. And so we thought it was a really cute idea to allude to the wine bottle and Bessa mi vino, meaning kiss my wine, to create a drinking game where the bottle was included. So you spin the bottle and then you pick a card. Whoever it lands on, that person picks the card and they read it out loud. And there's a lot of truth, dare, and challenge questions. So it's a very interactive drinking game. Exactly. Yeah. So there's about 200 cards in there. And the reason we created this was to essentially tell our community again, specifically in Los Angeles, but across California where we're distributed, to be like, hey, we're back. We've got new things coming. And we also wanted to reintroduce kind of the purpose and the whole idea behind the brand, which was to get people together.
I love that. They created a spin the besa game as a way to encourage and engage their audience while they're drinking wine, and they leverage their packaging for it. So great job, Tori. I think you guys win the Creativity Award. I'll tell you what Tori Brodsky is not. That is a rule follower. Because on our episode, we decided to break some TABC rules and drink wine on air. Actually, I'm not really sure if it's a rule or not, but we had fun with it. She shipped me some wine and we had a taste test on air. So let's check out the tasting of Bessa mi vino on air. I've got 4 different varieties here. I've got red wine, as you showed. We've got a white wine, and there's 2 rosés, which is my wife's favorite, so that's perfect. But how about we do a little sampling on the air? Is that cool?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Which one?
I don't know if that's legal with the Texas liquor laws, but we'll give it a shot. So here we go. Cheers.
Cheers. Get mine open. Cheers.
Cheers.
So Kurt, have you ever had red wine out of a can before?
I have not had red wine out of a can, and it's actually pretty damn good. And what I can tell already is I don't taste the sulfites and stuff that you're talking about. So I can see already it's very clean.
Yeah, very clean. We're really excited about this blend. It's made with organic Grenache and Pinot Noir. And we thought it was actually really perfect and suitable for summer because it's actually quite light and refreshing, which is kind of rare for reds. But we're excited about this one.
I like it. Thank you very much. On this next clip, we're going to see how our taste test went with Poppy, and you might get to see some of my acting skills at work.
Really, really excited about. It's probably it's quickly become one of my favorite flavors that we've developed.
It's a lot of pressure for me to like it on air here as we go.
But you're a good actor, though.
You're good at acting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
That's amazing. Actually, it's really good.
It's so good.
So there you have it. You actually got to see some of my acting skills on the Poppy episode. I will say it was actually very good. And if you haven't tried Poppy yet, you need to, because it's the fastest growing soda brand in the world. Now let's jump ahead to one of the topics that I think is very interesting for most of our listeners and viewers, and that is Shark Tank. Many of you saw the Poppy episode and were fascinated by the Shark Tank story. How does it work? How do they choose who gets to be on the show? How does the process work? What happens on the show? With this next clip, you're going to find out a little bit more about Shark Tank and what it looks like from the inside, stuff that you might not see on TV.
All right, so let's dive into Shark Tank, because most of my audience is entrepreneurs or people around entrepreneurs. A lot of folks want to understand the process or how it works. Can you tell me a little bit about the experience? I've heard it takes 1 or 2 hours to actually do the pitch, and obviously it's a 5 or 8 minute segment on the show. Mm-hmm. Stephen, you were sweating your ass off on the episode,
bad.
So it was a long day for you.
So bad.
Tell me a little bit about the experience.
Yeah, it was like probably one of the most stressful days of my life. It's the funny thing is, most people don't know, you actually have to check out with a therapist after you pitch on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Because it is considered one of the most stressful days that any person will go through. And so you literally spend 30 or 45 minutes with a therapist to like decompress after they like release you and let you go home. But yeah, I mean, it was super stressful. The thing is there's only like 90 seconds that are rehearsed in the whole Shark Tank thing. And so those 90 seconds are, hi, I'm Steven and I'm Allison and we're the, and then from there, it's just rapid fire questions. Right. So Allison's answering question about, the product, and Mark Cuban is over here. He's from Dallas. He's like, where's your facility in Dallas? What part of town are you guys from? Where, and sort of asking these personal questions, and everybody's talking over each other. So it's, it's a lot to process all at once, but honestly, a great experience.
I don't know, we were one of the few people that didn't know better, and we went to like an open casting call and waited 8 hours in line, and like I guess you can just apply online. And then I think when we went through the whole process, it took about 6 months. I was pregnant with our second, and by the time it got to the end, we were like 2 weeks before. I was like 9 months pregnant, had the baby 10 days later. But it was like this whole process, and then you don't know who your sharks are. There's just so much unknown. Mm-hmm. I remember after we got the deal, we went and like took a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can we pause with that for just a second? She said 9 months pregnant. She literally had a baby boy 6 or 7 days later. God bless you. Holy smokes.
Yeah. I mean, with our first, when we were starting, because we opened our own manufacturing facility, I think I went into labor on the bottling line and was back on 2 weeks later with Theo strapped to me, and then I think we always say like me pregnant, like having kids, like does really good things for the business, but I'm done.
Yeah.
Noted. I am done.
Well, the fact that she was in the facility like the next day with her baby strap, that makes her a good partner, right?
Exactly. Exactly. In the trenches.
I love it. I was going to ask you what it takes to be on the show, but you went through the open casting. Did you know two questions. Did you know who you wanted to be the shark that, if anybody were to say yes? I'm assuming yes, but given Rohan's background. And then number two, you came in asking for 10% or wanting to sell 10% for 400 grand. You ended up settling at 25% for 400 grand. Mm-hmm. Had you talked about what your levels were? Did you know going in where you would go?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Shark Tank does their own diligence, and that was a conversation that I had a lot with them. You were included a little bit in that, was just pushing valuation up, knowing that the sharks are sharks. They want a deal, right? So I think at that time, our revenue over the last 18 months was like 750,000. So definitely a sporty valuation. And then to answer your question on the sharks, we found out the night before. We had seen the show, and so we were like, hey, we would love for this person to be on the show, but we didn't know until less than 24 hours in advance. But I think once Ro was on there, I think Bethany was another one. Everyone that had like beverage background, we were excited about.
No, but I think people forget, like, we probably would have gone out of business if we hadn't gotten a deal on Shark Tank. And like, they see the success and the bright and shiny of Poppy now, but I mean, we were in the trenches. I mean, to the point where we'd quit our jobs, like the AC in the truck breaks, you can't afford to fix it. Like he's working a second job to pay our rent. Like we got to the point where we're like, okay, we're doing this, or like we have to give up our dream. So walking into it, it was a lot of, we need this to change our lives.
That's why I was sweating so bad.
There you have it. Some great tips and tidbits and behind the scene action from Shark Tank with our friends at Poppy. One of my favorite success stories and my favorite episodes was Paul Hedrick from Tecovas. I first met Paul when he was starting Tecovas back about 8 years ago, and I'm proud to say I was one of his first Austin investors, actually one of his first investors. And I wasn't really bought into the direct-to-consumer concept at the time, but I was impressed by Paul and impressed by his story. Now, fast forward a few years after they're doing $30 million in online sales, Paul tells me that he's going to go into a brick and mortar strategy. They're going to open stores around the country. And I called him crazy. What the hell are you thinking? You're doing $30 million online. Why are you going to go into brick and mortar like everybody else? Well, it turns out I wasn't the only person giving him that kind of feedback. So here's what he had to say on the episode when I pressed him on it.
So we really had the tiger by the tail. In fact, I remember to fast forward, you already revealed the next step, which was we did end up opening retail stores, and our first retail store opened about 3.5 years after we launched. I remember getting a very angry LinkedIn message from some customer. I should probably look him up and send him a nice note saying, I think it's working out, but I appreciate your feedback. But he basically said, you have the tiger by the tail. You've figured out how to sell stuff online that no one thought you could sell online. Why, who in the right mind would waste all this money going back to old school brick and mortar? And, it's funny that is outside looking in, maybe the right perspective. It is internally, it was a pretty dirty picture. Many things were going well. We grew revenue in a very successful way, and a pretty asset light way, obviously, but also a capital efficient way in our first few years. By coming into year 4, so a little over 3 years in, we were already approaching 30+ million in revenue, and we had only raised about 4 million, which compared to today's environment was certainly pretty capital efficient. We were not EBITDA negative. All the money was basically going into working capital, which for a company that grows that from 0 to 30 or 40 million in 3 or 4 years, there's often not working capital available for them. So, but the truth is, we were on thin ice. We barely had a team. We had not built out any real functions. We were still a ragtag team of do everything people. I didn't know really how to build that exec team just yet. But what was also happening was our advertising cost was skyrocketing as a percentage of revenue. It got as high as over 30% of revenue, which at the end of the day, there's no business advantage to selling direct to consumer if you have to spend a third of your budget getting people on your website. So that was one dynamic. The other dynamic was more positive, which is I firmly believed that we were succeeding in spite of being only available online, as opposed to because of. Being online was a great way to aggregate demand and brand storytelling into a website that would have otherwise been, scattered across brands that were not innovating and across 1,000 or 2,000 doors. However, it was not a great experience. I don't love the idea of sending a shoe or a boot that, what we call is a dead fit. There's no laces, there's no straps, there's no Velcro, there's nothing. You got to get that thing right. Exactly. And this is why everyone thought that people couldn't sell boots online, because it needs to be such a personal in-person experience to get fit. What's the brand that fits you? What's the size that fits you? What's the advice? Can you tell it fits? Because it doesn't feel like a normal shoe. So getting a FedEx box on your doorstep with one pair of boots in it and a little paper guide. Listen, we made it as easy as we could. We had a lot of instructions. We had free return label right in the box. We had agents available by phone, by email, by chat, anything you could need. But at the end of the day, that's not an amazing experience. And we really wanted to be the leading experience brand. The goal was not to be a value brand. The goal was to be the best brand. And the best brand had to have the best product and the best experience. And the only way to have the best experience was actually to emulate what was great about the industry at the time, which is personal service and hospitality. So that was the dream. And of course, we also had a dream to make it a better experience than the one that our competitors offered. So my vision was to kind of combine the idea of a more inviting but pretty luxury experience, a high touch experience of hospitality, a showroom style environment as opposed to an inventory on the floor environment. An environment where you're walking in and there are experts who are friendly, who want to shake your hand, who can lead you around the store or leave you to your own devices where you can pick the boots. But I did want it to be an inventory in the back, showroom in the front. By the way, free drinks. What else can we do that's legal to make this an amazing experience? And let's see if that can be part of the magic of Tecovas. And from day one of opening stores, they were a success because it turns out by spending all that money on advertising and having a lot of people buy boots that they loved, there were even more people who hadn't bought yet that were waiting for in person. And so basically right away, I think we were doing about $2 million in e-commerce sales in the Austin area, for example. And on, the first year of opening that store, it did 5 or 6 million.
This is great feedback and great advice for entrepreneurs and leaders. Sometimes you have to stick to your guns. Yes, you take feedback from your customers. Yes, you take feedback from your advisors, but it doesn't mean you do everything they say you should do. In fact, in this case, I didn't have enough information to make a decision. So Paul had more information than we do. And even if you do have more information, you're never going to have all the information to be able to make every decision with all the information. So sometimes you have to take a calculated risk. But I tell you what I didn't know. I didn't know that a third of their revenue is being spent to acquire customers. I also didn't have Paul's perspective on what a great experience was. I thought it was a pretty cool experience as it was from an online perspective, but he wanted it to be more than that. He wanted to create a wonderful in-person experience where you got a little taste of whiskey and you got to take off your shoes. You got to chill and hang out in a really cool environment. So I love that, the fact that he wanted to create an experience that had everything he wanted that was legal. That made me laugh. And the fact that he has all this data from their online experience was fascinating. I want to make sure you hear that. He knew how many people were buying and looking at boots and other Western wear in the Austin area, for example. So he knew that was a calculated risk on where he could open a new store. I thought that was fantastic. And they have been leveraging data very, very well through the course of their life. And they are now, let's just say they're doing well. So congrats, Paul, and kudos to following your gut. One of the things I like about this story with Jason Bronstad and Malk Organics is he took his obsession with health and he tied it into what he's doing with Malk. And you can see that it's a marriage made in heaven.
And through that journey, I was serendipitously given the opportunity to join Malk Organics. And it is the first time in my career that I've had a product in the house that my children can have as much as they want of. As you referenced some of my earlier companies, I've done frozen food, I've done beverage alcohol, I've done packaged meats even before that. And to be a part of an organization that values health and wellness and the impact of truly having organic products fit into my family's transformation. Because after I started my transformation, my family started to join. The foods we have eaten have shifted. Our alcohol consumption is next to zero. And we feel good. We actually can look at each other and have, last night was my wife's birthday. We had this incredible salmon we baked in the oven. We had Brussels sprouts that a neighbor made, a kale salad, and then we also had some Brussels sprouts. And it was delicious. If you would have told me that 5 years ago that I would have enjoyed that, I would have been like, no, give me the double cheeseburger, extra bacon, the large fries, and let's go. And I now know what my body feels like when it doesn't feel overloaded with all the extra stuff that we don't need.
Tell me a little bit more about Malk Organics. So you mentioned it was serendipitous that you joined a very health and wellness focused company. What do you guys do? I've got some product placement here for you right now. Maybe we'll do a little giveaway for folks who listen. Oh, there you go. You got almond. I got oat. I was looking for the chocolate flavor and I couldn't find it at Whole Foods, but this is still delicious. And now I'm jealous. All right. Tell me a little bit about Malk Organics and why is it so great? Because I know you guys are kicking ass.
Yeah. So Malk Organics is the premium plant-based milk out there. We are organic in everything we do. And we ensure that we don't put any gums, oils, fillers, additives, or preservatives into our product. Why is that important? Those are the things that can disrupt your gut biome. Those are the things that can add inflammation to your body. Those are the cheap ingredients that other manufacturers can use that gives them profit. Our focus and our heart has always been to deliver something to consumers that is clean, organic, with simple ingredients that you can pronounce. So as we focus on that, as we launch new products, the one thing that kept coming to mind is we have to make sure it tastes good as well. You can have clean, simple ingredients, but if it doesn't taste good, people might try it, but they're not coming back. And what are all CPG brands focusing on? Is that repeat consumer. How do you get them into your franchise with a proposition that adds value to their life? People still make almond milk at home. And high five if you have the time, effort, and energy to do it. We at Malk want to give you the opportunity to buy a product that is as good as you would make at home by yourself.
I love Jason's passion, and I love the fact that for him, it's more than just a job. If it's just a job for you, especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's going to be a grind and you're probably not going to be successful. So I would encourage you to align your passion with what you're doing as an entrepreneur. There's another thing that I love about Jason Bronstadt's story, and that is one of the key unlocking moves for him was when he realized that he didn't have to, nor could he, do everything himself. What if he hired people stronger than him and let them do their job? Let's hear what Jason has to say about that.
So the biggest unlock for me professionally was when I was fully confident that I could hire people that were exponentially better than me, rather than having a fear for people that could replace me. I actually now thrive in an environment where I've got 4 direct reports, all of which could replace me. That has unlocked the conversations that has helped our organization to grow and accelerate beyond my wildest dreams at a pace that is, much faster than I would have expected. And to be able to lead with vulnerability and to look to my head of sales, to look to my head of finance, look to my head of marketing, look to my head of operations and say, you unequivocally know more about your department than I do. And I want to learn from you in this process, has allowed us to have really proactive conversations that shift us in the right direction incrementally, 1% every week. How do we get better?
That is so powerful, Jason. Hiring people stronger than you. You'd be amazed at how many people want to hire people weaker than them so they don't expose themselves, right? And you just identified a huge unlocking move. Hire people stronger than you and let them run. It makes your job so much easier.
So much easier. I get time to actually have great conversations like this and talk about our company and our culture instead of worrying about that next purchase order, that next production day, that next marketing tactic, when I know and I fully trust. And that's the other thing. So part 2 of that, not only hire better, but 2 is lead with trust. Give trust from the front instead of making your team earn it. What a powerful move that is, because all of a sudden your team feels empowered. They know that you've got their back. And the conversation is, I expect you to fail at some point. Just fail forward. Let's learn and let's go. You're not going to just exhaust all trust for one little mistake. No, this is a learning organization that we're going to progress forward with.
Okay. I love the fact that he says hire better. And he gave us a little bit of a commercial there. But truly, hire better, stronger than you. And that's going to give you a strong chance for success. And then trust and empower them to do their job. How freeing is that as an employee to have a boss or a leader that trusts and empowers you to do your job? I love that. He leads with trust. There's one more thing that I want to point out about this clip that I want to make sure doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And that is this fact that you, as an entrepreneur, as a person, you are not alone. Other people have been through the same trials and tribulations that you have, and other people can support you along your journey. You are not alone. Well, I want to close this episode with my friends at Poppy. I wanted to ask them, how do you maintain that entrepreneurial spirit? How do we keep that category disruptor attitude for a company that's growing exponentially during their short history? So here's what Allison and Stephen had to say about that.
You talked about that spirit of the organization and the culture. How do you keep that entrepreneurial spirit as you grow? Now you are exponentially bigger, and you share whatever numbers you feel comfortable sharing than you were when you obviously started. But how do you keep that entrepreneurial spirit?
I think, just for context, some fun numbers, like Poppy is the #1 selling soda on Amazon for years. We're one of the fastest growing beverages in the nation, if not the fastest beverage in the history of beverage, right? Just like in 4 years from growth to where we are in every single grocery store, Canada, Mexico, right? And then even on top of it, there's 2 of us in March of 2020. We're going to have 180 employees, right? Just there's so many unforeseen wild things that have happened in our growth. And I think that to keep the culture and the entrepreneurial spirit is both me and Steven are the culture, and we lead culture at Poppy. Right. I think like there's a lot of crazy founders out there that are like not present or on vacation or doing it, but like we're in the trenches. We both lead departments. I do new hire meetings. We get company retreats, like it's a priority. But the change from being entrepreneurial to where we are today has changed because we are not a startup anymore.
I love that. And by the way, you could have stopped that first sentence with, there's a lot of crazy founders out there.
There's a lot.
If you think we are, don't tell us. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
exactly.
It's always the ones who don't know that was the most crazy.
Yeah.
Now, you're also disrupting a category, obviously. How do you continue to disrupt with the pace of growth that you've had?
Poppy's so if you take 10 households in America, we're 1 in 10 households in America. You know, soda has a 96% household penetration, meaning like most houses have some kind of soda. So for us to like continue to gain on that, but really being digital first has been a breakthrough for us. And I mean, from day one, you mentioned we were on Shark Tank for the second time. We filmed that in 2019, right before COVID hit. And it aired second month of COVID when everyone was stuck at home. It was second month of lockdown. It was like one of the most viewed Shark Tank episodes, second month of business, that just a national commercial. So I think there's just been a lot of things that have like kind of supercharged us from the beginning to go from startup to now emerging to a challenger brand.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lot of it comes down to execution, right? I think I think that's where we've married sort of the good entrepreneurial spirit with sort of the business fundamentals from industry veterans, right? How do they do the blocking and tackling? How do they help us execute and bring more visibility and data in decision making? But I think it's allowed us to really stay disruptive and creative, right? And still continue to execute and be the visionaries for the brand. So I think that's been, I think, something really unique at Poppy.
There's a couple of things you've said, Allison, I want to come back to that dovetails with what you're saying there, Stephen. And that is a focus on being digitally first or digitally minded, or forget the term.
Digitally first.
Tell me more about that, because obviously that's your brand and you're hitting it at the peak of social media and content.
Yeah, we were one of the first brands back in 2020 to get on TikTok. And a lot of people are like, well, as a brand, how do I navigate this authentic, really public figure facing dancing platform? And I was like, there's just so much more to it. It's a way to authentically connect with our community like no brands had really done before. And up until that point, you have Instagram, which is like your website. If someone looks at your brand, they're like, probably go to either your website or Instagram, right? It's high gloss. It's a little bit more of an education vehicle of like perfection. And things have changed. I mean, COVID changed all of us into this like real, like showing up in your PJs and it being like socially acceptable mindset. So I just got on, and one night I sat down, I told our story of Shark Tank to our, growth, and it went absolutely viral. I think that video has over 120 million views. And it opened our eyes to how we can drive in-store retail purchase, email, SMS, Amazon. I mean, just recently, Prime Day was last week. In a matter of, I think, 2 days, we did $4 million driving from our partnership with Amazon, just on Amazon in 48 hours or something crazy. Wow. And it's
our
all
revenue
driven.
in 2020 was 3.5.
Yeah. So in 2 days.
2 days. Yeah. Nice.
So, I always have a lot of people say like, how do you be so digitally? It's just like, it's native and the way of thinking, and it's top down. We don't leave it up to the intern to figure out TikTok or the social media. It like our CEO, Chris, will be in TikTok. Steven will be in we have like everybody. It's like part of our culture. We don't resist it. We embrace it.
So I think that's powerful. Everybody is using it, and you're embracing digital and social media, and everybody who's building a brand out there should pay attention to that quote and leverage the crap out of that, because you've embraced it and made it authentic and natural for you.
Yeah, and nobody really cares like what you like. If you have 200 views, like I had 200 views and I have 2 billion, but like if it doesn't work, no one scrolls way down on TikTok and looks what you did a month ago. Just like keep posting and have fun.
Dude, I'm going to get tens, if not dozens of views from this podcast. So
12 whole views.
I'm right there with you.
I'm 12 of them.
That is such a powerful clip. How do you, as an organization that's growing fast, how do you maintain that entrepreneurial spirit? How do you continue to disrupt your category? It takes you, the founders. You are the lifeblood. You are the heart and soul of the organization. You can't delegate that. Those are key elements that you need to maintain as you continue to grow. And Stephen and Alice have done a fantastic job of showing us how it's done. On that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up. Please go like and subscribe wherever you consume your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Please continue to give us 5-star reviews, and a big shout out to all the guests who came back to help me film this special episode of Unlocking Moves.
If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmic.com/quiz.